All right, let's continue with our reaction now. We're joined on the line by the former mayor, of course, of Cape Town, Patricia de Lille, the current Minister, of course, of Public Works and Infrastructure, of course, Mayor of Cape Town between 2011 to 2018. A very good evening to you, Minister. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I think you had warned Mmusi Maimane previously that he had been basically colluding with people that wanted him out of the Democratic Alliance.
Well, the DA is well on its way on the path of self-destruction, and I think it's best that we don't disturb them. But I hate to say to Mmusi that I told you so, but I'm going to say it anyway. Now, I'm not claiming to be a Sangoma, but I warned Mmusi Maimane that if he didn't stand on principle, those laptop boys and the cabal would swallow him up and spit him out. He saw the blue train coming, but he just didn't know how to get out of its way. So when I resigned from the DA on the 31st of August 2018 last year, it was after learning the bitter lessons that the party's stated policies were window dressing, and it did not match the practices in government. So I can only say to Mmusi goodbye. I'm glad to see you go, and I hope that you will have a good time. But South Africans who care about our people must continue to come together for the common good of our country.
All right. Does this expose somewhat what has obviously been the sentiment that some have shared about how the Democratic Alliance refuses to transform? Because what this clearly somewhat does paint a picture of is the fact that black leaders within the Democratic Alliance are unhappy, and most recently with the return of Helen Zille.
The sad part, Griselda, is that you go out to the electorate based on a manifesto. And the manifesto say, for instance, when I was the mayor of the city of Cape Town, that we need to deal with apartheid spatial planning and integrate our cities. I did exactly what was in the Constitution by releasing land in well-located areas to deal with integration and the apartheid spatial planning. And they came down like a ton of bricks on me, exactly what they are doing to Mmusi today.
Minister, I think obviously what happens now for the Democratic Alliance, obviously with what we've seen in the last election, where obviously they'd lost some support, and the analysis, of course, on it is that those who chose to vote for the Freedom Front Plus, for example, were unhappy with the direction that the Democratic Alliance was taking. So is this somewhat a move by the Democratic Alliance to regain so-called the Democratic Alliance from people they perceived wanted to perhaps take it over?
Well, no political party in this country today can exist without reflecting the demographics of our country. And if Mmusi was trying to work to reflect the demographics of South Africa, and he wasn't allowed to do so, it's certainly going to be a big challenge for them to continue to pretend to be caring about all the people of South Africa, but then excluding the majority of people in our country, and especially the poor. Well, like I said, to me, the DA is well on its way to destruction, destroying themselves. And, when people are busy with that, you must simply leave them alone to continue.
And this is something that you yourself, as someone who, of course, left the Democratic Alliance, unhappy as well, perhaps this probably brings back for you sentiments that you shared about the Democratic Alliance back then.
Yes, definitely, Griselda, and it's hardly a year later. In fact, it is just 1 week before I resigned, a year later on the 31st. And all of those people, including Mmusi Maimane, that have worked against me, that wanted me out of the party, they're all gone. James South, Paul Bowie, Jonathan Knox, all of them. And so Helen has come back to replace them, and that it remains to be seen what she wants to do with the Democratic Alliance going forward.
Do you think she will see the demise of the Democratic Alliance?
I really don't know what's going on in that party at the moment. They're busy falling apart. There are a lot of contradictions. I think that they're beginning to lose their relevance because they don't have a clear message for South Africans. They don't have a message that speaks about reconciliation, redress, accept diversity in our country. So they really have to, market themselves differently, and they need to define a space for them in the broader South Africa.
Having been in the party as well, Minister, who do you see? I know that the Democratic Alliance now will have an urgent meeting tomorrow. They'll consult with their lawyers, given the resignation of Athol Trollip as well, which puts a spanner in the works. Who do you think would be best at this point, if the Democratic Alliance wants to save face, to best put in that position temporarily?
Well, I see this as a well-designed strategy. And, of course, they tested the voters and the Federal Council on Sunday. So Helen is clearly holding the bloc and the majority of the support in the Democratic Alliance. And so that is that bloc that will now decide who is going to replace Mmusi, who is going to replace Athol. But you know what? I don't want to give them advice, but I do think that it is disastrous for the Democratic Alliance, what has happened, not only to Mmusi as their leader, but, there are very few leaders in the DA that's principled, and that is a lesson that Mmusi had to learn. You can't give up your principles for anything. I'd rather resign and then to stay in a mayor's post and earn a good salary. I left. I became unemployed and then worked my way through by starting the good movement and coming back into Parliament. There are very few people that are principled who can stand up for their rights.
You talk about principle and also leaving at a time that you felt uncomfortable within the Democratic Alliance. A lot of speculation at this point about whether other black members or those within positions within the Democratic Alliance should also resign in solidarity. Do you think they should do that in solidarity with Mmusi Maimane, in solidarity with Athol Trollip, and for what it is that they stand for, which they think the Democratic Alliance is deviating from?
Well, if you look at Herman Mashaba, of course, Herman Mashaba can afford to take the hard line that he took. I think there are many black leaders in the DA that are very unhappy at the moment, but who can't leave because of they're going to lose their income. But, sometimes you have to put principle before your stomach. And those leaders who still remain behind, like I warned them at the time. I said, you all voted to get me out. Once I'm out, they're going to come after you, and it's exactly what is happening today.
All right, Adise, thank you very much for your time. We'll leave it there. Patricia de Lille, the former mayor of Cape Town, as well as the leader of Good now and also a minister in the current government, saying basically that the Democratic Alliance has done to Mmusi Maimane what it did to her. She says black leaders within the Democratic Alliance are not happy. And basically some of the other black leaders or those in positions within the Democratic Alliance